They say misery loves company. They haven't met author Caleb Carr.
The name of this place is called Misery Mountain.
Yes.
You're not rolling your eyes at me, are you?
No, I'm not rolling my eyes at you. It's just that it is an amazing coincidence that I bought a mountain called Misery Mountain.
To Carr, misery's more than a state of mind. It's a living.
Am I miserable? No, wouldn't describe myself as a miserable person, but there are those who would say that my outlook on humanity is pretty miserable.
Carr has a gift for turning the worst humanity has to offer into best-selling books. It started with 1994's The Alienist, a graphic tale about a serial killer loose in 19th century New York City, in a neighborhood that Carr writes knew little of laws, man-made or otherwise. Its sequel, The Angel of Darkness, was a bestseller too.
It was just supposed to be a little cottage industry that would give me a stipend to live off of while I was doing the work that I had always done and was trained to do. It takes off, is a big bestseller.
His latest work is The Italian Secretary, a Sherlock Holmes novel commissioned by the estate of Holmes' creator, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
How difficult was it to write in someone else's style?
Not difficult for me, not with Conan Doyle.
Carr had read Sherlock Holmes since he was a kid and watched the Holmes movies, like The Hound of the Baskervilles.
Who is it? A Notting Hill murderer. He escaped from prison last month.
I could speak like Basil Rathbone being Sherlock Holmes by the time I was 10.
But Carr's true calling is military history, and it was the historian in him that took over when he designed his house after buying all 1,400 acres of Misery Mountain.
There is me in every detail of this house.
Every detail.
There's not a bit of this house that wasn't carefully considered by me.
Carr sketched the house himself, no architect needed, and spent 2 painstaking years making it come to life.
And it is an interesting comparison between writing a book and building a house. They're very similar.
I would have never thought that.
Well, I wouldn't have either. And if I had thought it, I probably wouldn't have done it because writing a book is a really torturous process. And it turned out that building a house was not as easy as I thought it was going to be.
It's modeled after a 200-year-old English stone manor.
Well, the impression was definitely to have an old-style great room.
And as anyone who's read Carr's work knows, the beauty is in the details.
I wanted the effect of the depth of the windows and doors being like this, because else you don't get that howling wind that comes in and out of those stone apertures. That's so necessary part of having a stone house.
Having a stone house.
The wide plank floors feature old-style square-head nails.
So you insisted on this particular kind of nail?
Yes. Much to the disappointment of my carpenters, because those nails are very hard to drive.
The railings are all hand-cut wood and iron.
And this is all solid metal, so they each weigh about 300 pounds.
Wow.
The study where Carr writes is tucked away in a second-floor corner at the top of an 1840s replica wrought iron spiral staircase.
And is there something to this being a little bit more difficult to navigate than your typical staircase?
Well, it isn't. It doesn't make it any easier for people to get up here, which is a good thing, because I don't really want people to get up here.
You could say the same thing about all of Misery Mountain. This place has in fact been an escape for Carr his whole life. The White House down the road has been in the Carr family for several generations. For him and his brothers, the outdoors was a refuge.
If we hadn't had this place, I don't think we would have really survived.
Carr grew up on New York's Lower East Side, a then crime-filled neighborhood where violence was a part of everyday life. If you want to know why violence pervades Carr's work, look here and look to his father.
My father was a violent person by nature. He was a tempestuous person, and my father told me repeatedly, nobody likes a smartass.
And what effect did that have?
Made me that much more of a smartass every time he said it. It's what happens with children. If it's accompanied by a swift smack to the back of your head.
When Carr's father, Lucian, was 19 years old, he killed a man and served 2 years in prison before being pardoned.
He never spoke about it. And it gave me more of a desire to try to figure out where personal violence comes from.
But Lucian Carr also had a creative side as an editor at United Press International and as a good friend to some of the biggest names of the Beat generation, Jack Kerouac, William S. Burroughs, and Allen Ginsberg. However, to young Caleb, they held little interest.
And you know there are fans of Beat writers out there who say, you had Burroughs and Ginsberg in your living room, and you walked away from it?
Yes, I have been haunted by those people all my life, and I did walk away from it. The tanks are German.
Instead, Carr buried himself in military history. On a shelf at his new home are the toy soldiers he painted as a kid. He's a contributing editor to the Quarterly Journal of Military History.
Insurgent forces, get up next to the blackboard. Counterinsurgent, get on this side of the board.
And he shares his passion with the next generation, teaching at Bard College outside New York City.
Remember what your goal is. Remember what they have to establish.
When we visited, he was leading students through an Iraq war game. The topic, insurgencies and counterinsurgencies.
They have to come in through the south and they have to go for Baghdad.
Right.
They
So,
have.
guys,
If they don't do that, it's suicidal. I mean, it'd be great for you.
A few years ago, Carr published The Lessons of Terror. He traced 2,000 years of war, arguing that strategies that target civilians have always ultimately failed.
What I am trying to do is to influence the way American power is exerted around the world. We must develop a way for American military power to be projected in a more enlightened fashion. We have to, or the entire world, even more of the world than hates us now, will hate us later.
And if historian, novelist, and architect aren't enough, Carr has written the words to an opera in progress. The subject is Merlin, the magician in the legends of King Arthur. A story of noble intentions and corruption. A little history with your music.
Traditional styles are very comforting to me. The modern world is a very uncomfortable place for me.
Why is the modern world uncomfortable for you?
It's hard to look at the modern world as a student of the things that I study and see it as anything but pretty horrendous. It's not a comfortable place in terms of where our values are going. We are heading into a very dark age.
How old are the calves?
About 2 weeks.
Still, even in the world of Caleb Carr, there are bright spots.
They come with...
Mabel.
You did name them.
Oh yeah, they've all got names. And they know their names too, which is the great thing.
Carr shares his mountain with a herd of Herefords. They're raised for beef, and Carr's been warned not to get too attached.
Gina was the original, all the way up in the corner there.
But he's named each one, including a runt called Frankie.
But he's the smartass of the herd. He's the little guy that nobody expected to live. They all tried to push him around when he was little. Now he goes around just knocking into everybody.
So you have some identification with this cow?
Well, yes, I would say I do have some identification with Frankie.
But will he ever have more than the cows and his cat Suki for company?
I've had a lot of girlfriends who came up here and just couldn't, this is not the beach. You need to want to be in the country to spend time up here.
So for now, Caleb Carr is putting his faith in his work.
The counterinsurgents played this very smart.
And in his students, who are studying the past in hopes of changing the future.
They're all interested in it. The good ones, the smart ones, are all interested in it. It's actually a very reassuring thing that they are.
So maybe it's not all gloom and doom then, Caleb.
It's not all gloom and doom, no. There are things to be encouraged by.
Maybe we'll pull out of the dark ages. You can come
There's
down
always-
from Misery Mountain.
Absolutely. There's always a chance that that's going to happen. But it's long odds.